Gary Parrish's own New York Mets completed the short series sweep of the crosstown rival New York Yankees to claim temporary bragging rights in New York. The birthday boy Max Scherzer celebrated the big day with 7 innings, a shutout ball that included 3 strikeouts of Aaron Judge. A Gleyber Torres home run tied it at 2 in the 8th inning, but at the end of the day, it was a Marte Parte in Queens as the Mets walked it off in the night. Gary, another big statement win for your boys.
It really was. It was a lot of fun walking around the city today. Blue hat, orange letters, 2-game sweep of the Yanks. 2 fun games. They were both intense. Playoff atmospheres, really until the final pitch was thrown. And, the Mets also extended their lead over Atlanta in the NL East to 3 games. So it's hard not to be excited right now as August approaches. The other thing that stood out in the series is that, the first-year Mets really made a big impact. Max Scherzer was terrific again, went 7 innings pitched, 0 runs given up. Starling Marte gets the game-winning hit last night. Eduardo Escobar the night before homers to lift the Mets in that first inning. Historically, as a Mets fan for decades now, the new additions have often been disappointments for a variety of reasons, but it's really not the case this year. The first-year Met players have been great. The first-year Met manager, Buck Showalter, has been great. And, there's a lot of reasons to think that the best is still to come. I'm not necessarily predicting a trip to the World Series, but obviously something like that is on the table.
You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it's not dropping right now, GP.
No, it's a lot of fun. I mean, the Yankees, I don't know if they're the best team in baseball, but they have the best record in baseball. And to have them come across town to Citi Field and suffer back-to-back losses, you saw what it meant to those players. Like, even when guys were homering in the first, it looked like they were homering in the 8th or the 9th. Like, they understood. And perhaps for the Yankees, it was just another game, or they'll call it that. But these Mets players, from Pete Alonso, Max Scherzer, on down the line, they all knew that this meant something. This was an opportunity to make a big statement, not just in the city, but throughout the country, and they did it.
All right, I don't have a dog in the fight, but living in New York City, it was really cool. When you don't have a dog in the fight, to have the New York Rangers go as deep as they did, and then you roll right into this, where both baseball teams are having phenomenal seasons. Jacob deGrom, after rehab start yesterday, and barring any setbacks, it looks like his next start will be with the big club, most likely next week against the Nationals. Gary, is this the piece that can potentially put them over the top?
Yes, potentially. Now, he got hit a little bit yesterday while throwing AAA Syracuse. He gave up 2 home runs in 4 innings, gave up 4 earned runs, did strike out 6, walk 3. But I'm not concerned about that. It wasn't great, but I'm not concerned. My only concern is whether Jacob deGrom can get healthy and then get back on the mound at Citi Field and then stay healthy. If not, if he just either isn't the same guy or isn't available, the Mets are still good. They got the 2nd best record in the National League. They're good without him, but they can be great with him. And when you get into NLCS or a World Series and you can march out there top shelf Max Scherzer and top shelf Jacob deGrom in some order in back-to-back games, 4 times in a 7-game series, well, that is the type of thing that tips the scales in your favor. Even if you're not the better team in the series, if you've got those 2 guys going in game 1 and game 2, you might end up being the team that's got the better opportunity to advance or hold the trophy at the whole thing. So it is exciting that he seems to be feeling good after multiple rehab starts, and in theory, he should pitch in the major leagues next week for the first time in more than a year.
Well, that was Ravens head coach John Harbaugh responding to yet another critic of his quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Gary, Lamar is in the final year of his rookie deal, and he just watched Kyler Murray sign a mega extension. Does Lamar Jackson deserve that kind of long-term contract and the Kyler type money?
Deserve is such a weird word. I'm not sure he deserves it, but he could certainly use it, because this is a guy who is 25 years old. He's been an MVP. He's accomplished more in the NFL than Kyler Murray. So you got to wonder if he does get a little resentful that he hasn't been able to get a new deal done yet. Now, in fairness to Baltimore, they have put one on the table. He just hasn't accepted it. And it should also be noted, he doesn't have an agent, which is just bananas to me. I mean, Stove, you've got an agent.
I've got an agent. You've got an agent.
I've got an agent. And this guy's got literally hundreds of billions of dollars at stake, and he's operating without an agent. That is bananas to me. But like all that said, if he can't reach a deal, he does seem at least somewhat comfortable of playing in the final year of this deal. Like some guys in his situation right now are refusing to practice. He's at least practicing and by all accounts handling this professionally. And it's not like, if they don't get a deal done, he's gone forever. They can franchise tag him for 2 years after this one. That might get awkward, but they can do it. Bottom line, there's no urgency to get a deal done other than this. You don't want resentment to set in. He is your franchise quarterback, and I recognize he might be flawed as a thrower, but you can still win a lot of games with him. I think you'd rather have him than not. So you wouldn't ever want resentment to sit in from quarterback to the front office, and that might be a motivating factor for the two to come together, get this thing done, the big number guaranteed, and then we and they can stop talking about it.
With his numbers on a downward spiral, Gary, will this be Zeke's last year with the Cowboys?
Probably. The contract is just so bad, and it's not getting better. And his backup, my fellow University of Memphis alum, Tony Pollard, is arguably more effective. Like last season, Tony Pollard averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Zeke only got 4.2 yards per carry. And next spring, and this is worth noting, there's what amounts to an escape hatch in Ezekiel Elliott's contract that allows Dallas to move on at a pretty manageable number. It's not great, but it's manageable. And so if Ezekiel Elliott is bad or average this year, he's almost certainly done in Dallas. But even if he's good, they might just want to be moving on from this and go in a different direction and never, ever, ever sign a running back to this type of contract again.
Welcome back to Time is Schein. It's Schein on Baseball as the baseball world reacts to the news of Mike Trout's injury diagnosis. It's a rare back condition which could potentially diminish Trout's skills for the remainder of his career. Trout, on the other hand, insists that this injury is not career-threatening. And I quote, "It's not what the report came out. I think he," talking about the trainer, "meant I've got to stay on top of the routine I do on a daily basis to prevent it from coming back. I feel good where it's at right now. Every day it's improving. Yeah, I think it's a little exaggeration. Getting a lot of, appreciate all the prayers, but my career is not over." Gary, can Trout still be productive for years to come?
Sure, possibly, and certainly I hope so. I mean, he's a generational talent. A guy who's been an MVP 3 times in 2014, 16, and 19. And now in this moment, he's a 30-year-old with what is described as a, quote, rare back condition. That's scary. Perhaps not as scary as the trainer made it sound. That's according to Mike Trout. But still, it's not good news. I mean, this guy has been operating at the tip-top of the sport for a long, long time, and yet he's mostly been on bad teams, and now this pops up. So what I hope is that Mike Trout is more right on this subject than the Angels trainer is on this subject, in that this is a minor thing that we never talk about again. But certainly the way it was described by the trainer it's not encouraging.
Meantime, Red Sox Chief Baseball Officer Schein Bloom says there are no plans to trade All-Stars Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts before the trade deadline. With the Red Sox currently in last place in the East, is it time to reconsider that, Chief?
It's definitely time to at least be open to the possibility of moving on. I mean, they're in last place in the AL East. They're 4.5 games back of the final wild card spot. They've lost 14 of 18, obviously trending in the wrong direction. And Bogaerts, he can opt into free agency after this season. Devers, only has this season and next season on a contract right now. So if you think you're going to have trouble re-signing these guys someday, you should definitely look to move them at the trade deadline. And with Bogaerts, you could move him and then bring him back if you wanted to. That's something that does happen, in Major League Baseball. I would let it go through the weekend, but if the Red Sox continue to lose, it would be foolish to not look at moving them and seeing what's available, because according to 538 right now, they've only got a 19% chance to get one of the wild card spots. And if they, don't start winning literally immediately, then that number obviously decreases. Then by the time the trade deadline gets here next week, you got to be open to moving those guys.
Okay, moving on to their division rivals. Last night, the Yankees acquired Royals All-Star outfielder Andrew Benintendi in exchange for 3 minor leaguers. Gary, what will Benintendi bring to the Bronx, and what other moves do the Yanks need to make moving forward?
Well, I love this move. The news broke right at the end of the Yankees-Mets game last night, and they're bringing in an all-star who's still in his 20s and who has been a Gold Glove winner. He's hitting a career best 320 right now for a Yankees team that's got a bunch of big bats, but they're only hitting 246 as a team. That's 13th in the majors. So here's a guy who puts the bat on the ball. Again, career best 320 average right now. He's leading the American League in singles. And he's going to get Joey Gallo's at-bats down, which I know Yankee fans are excited about because he's been striking out in nearly half of his at-bats this season. One possible issue is that Benintendi is reportedly unvaccinated. And obviously that could be an issue in the AL East because you've got games in Canada against Toronto and then theoretically in the AL playoffs as well. Now, reportedly the Yankees are confident that he will take care of that and this won't be an issue. If he does, I love this. If not, it's going to be a lot of talk radio fodder as the summer moves on.
No doubt. Finally, the San Francisco Giants dropped their 7th straight game after a 5-3 loss to the Diamondbacks. For a team that won 107 games last season, this year's squad has been a far cry from sharing that same success. Can we officially write off the Giants for 2022?
I wouldn't write them off just yet because this is still a team that won a lot of games last season and a lot of pieces from that team are still there. They're 2 games under 500 right now. They obviously have been disappointing, but the playoffs are still within reach. They're just 3.5 games out of the 3rd NL wild card, and only the Phillies are between them and the Cardinals. So the Red Sox have a lot of teams to jump to get into that wild card picture. The Giants really only have 2. They could do something at the trade deadline that could spark them over the final 60 games of the regular season. I don't know if you heard, Juan Soto is available. They've been loosely connected to that. Wilson Contreras might be available. Luis Castillo might be available. So I could certainly see San Francisco maybe doing something at the trade deadline, being a buyer rather than a seller, and then getting back on track. They're never going to catch the Dodgers, obviously, but can they get into the playoffs? Maybe. And as we've seen in years past, you just got to get there. And then, the World Series is very possible from that wild card position.
Okay, well done.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell for more videos.